Hello everybody, Dylan here from DHT, Games, Comics, Theories, and more. Today we are going to be doing a top 10. Today's top 10 is going to be Top 10 Sonic the Hedgehog Character Prototypes, Part 3. If you haven't seen Part 2 and 1, be sure to go watch them before this, because I cover a lot of characters in those, and I want to be sure that you don't recommend characters I've already covered after the video's over. So, let's get right into this today on DHT. Number 10 is Bunny Rabbit. Now, with this Bunny Rabbit, she looks a lot different than the Bunny Rabbit we know. Instead of a robotic arm, she has these weird robot shoulder plates. It looks really odd on her. She also has like an energy crystal in the middle of her chest. It might be a reactor like Tony Stark's suit has. And her robotic legs look less detailed, but that could be the fact that it's just a rough sketch. One thing that I don't like about this design is her ears. She has really small ears, and I just prefer the long floppy-eared look on her. Overall, with the lipstick, the nose, the ears, the weird chest design, I prefer the Bunny Rabbit we got. But that's why this is number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Number 9 is Dr. Eggman from Sonic Boom. Now, the funny thing is, I always thought that his outfit was supposed to be inspired by a military outfit, like a captain of the Navy or something in that regard. But looking at this concept art of him, he was so clearly inspired by the Beatles. You can tell by the sunglasses, the shorter mustache, and the obvious marching band uniform and the gloves. This is a Beatles-inspired getup, and I get why. Because the name The Eggman is a pun to the Beatles, so I get what they were doing here. They were revolving it all back around to the Beatles, and I think that's a really cool concept, and it really puts in some insight to Eggman. I like this more chilled and laid back look for Eggman because it would kind of work with how he acts in Sonic Boom, but I don't mind the look that we got, so that's why this one's at number 9. Now, number 8. This one's a confusing one, but it has an interesting story to it. Honey the Cat. Now, I know what you're saying. Honey the Cat isn't a canceled character. She's been in the Sonic comics, and she was in Sonic the Fighters on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. And to that, I have to say, yes, she did get in Sonic the Fighters, but only the re-release, and she has been in the comics. But originally, she was supposed to be in Sonic the Fighters, and she was yoinked out. She was inspired by another Sega character, and she was mainly only used during the development of Sonic the Fighters. I don't know if they actually intended her to be in the final game, but when people found out about her existence, they really wanted her. So, eventually, when they went to port the video game over to HD for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, they added her back in. But she had already been in the comics before that, so she's kind of a character that died, then got revived due to the fan base. So Honey the Cat has an interesting story, but she was still a canceled character at one point, so she counts for here. Now, number 7 is a character I've touched on before, and I've had her father in the last characters list. Her name is Tiara Bobowski, or Tiara Cyberewski. She was going to be in the cancelled Sonic Extreme game. There isn't a lot we know about her. We knew that she was going to be like the equal to Sonic. She could run almost as fast as Sonic. She was as adventurous as Sonic, and she was meant to be a love interest for Sonic. Someone that Sonic might actually want to get with. But, unfortunately, her game was cancelled, and we don't know what they would have took with this character. From the development stories, we heard that she was a princess that Sonic would be trying to win the affection over during the game, no matter which version of the game it was. So, what do I think of Tiara Bobowski? She looks like an interesting character. I like the attitude aspect to her. I like the fact that she's a princess, because we already had one shit princess in Sonic. We might as well get a decent one. I just think that, in theory, she sounds like she could have been a good character, but because we never got to see where the storyline was going, and the game never got completed to begin with, I don't know what to say about her. She never got into any comics afterward, and she's mainly just been adopted by the internet. So, Tierra Cyberewski, Tierra Bobowski, you're a decent character, but I really don't know what to think of you. Now, number 6, we have Anti-Sonic. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dylan, this Anti-Sonic looks nothing like the one that we know. And you're correct. This Anti-Sonic is instead a weird, scrungy, hobo-looking Sonic. And he was going to premiere way before the original Anti-Sonic premiered. As you can see with this cover, which is concept art from the Archie comics, he was going to take the place that Pseudosonic had in Pseudosonic's debut. Now, you see that they call him Anti-Sonic right there, and instead of the Anti-Sonic that we know with the glasses and the jacket, instead he has dirt all over his fur, he's got patches all over his clothes, he's got torn gloves, his ear is partially gone, he's got a bandage around the other ear. This just looks like a dirty, scroungy Sonic. I guess this is what they meant with Anti-Sonic. The regular Sonic is a clean and presentable guy, this one's a dirty and evil guy. I'm really glad that we got Pseudo-Sonic in this comic and that we would get Anti-Sonic that we know later on and then Scourge. Because this Anti-Sonic, I don't see him being memorable. Like, he's just a hobo. I don't know why they would go with this idea. I'm really glad that they didn't. So yeah, number 6, Evil Sonic, Anti-Sonic, whatever you want to call him. I'm just glad they didn't use him. Number 5 is Chow's from Sonic Boom. That's right, you heard it correctly. Originally, Sonic Boom was gonna have chows. There was gonna be 2 different types of chows. There were gonna be these little creature chows, like normal chows, and then there were gonna be these stone chows, and each one were gonna evolve in different ways. This idea was scrapped in the original Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric game, but it would be used in Sonic Dash, Sonic Boom Edition, the one that was the sequel to Sonic Dash. But you may not know them as chows because they were renamed to sprites. Yeah, even these ones were called chow sprites, so maybe they were always intending for it to be sprites, but then they just dished the chow aesthetic altogether. I really wish they would have kept the name chow because chows are just so recognizable, and it would make us have something more to identify the Sonic Boom universe with the regular Sonic universe. Plus, if there's Chow, then there's usually Chaos Emeralds around, and I'm not fully convinced that the Sonic Boom universe doesn't have their own mystical gems. So, I really wish that Sonic Boom would have kept these creatures around, but I can understand why they got rid of them for the sprites. So, let's move on to number 4. Now, while looking for concept art, I found something that was really interesting. I know Sega would never use this, but number 4 is the Werehog. It was so weird seeing what the Werehog originally looked like. This Werehog looks more like Bigfoot, and he's obviously more of a monster. You can barely even recognize that he's Sonic through all that fur. With this design, his arms do definitely look like they were going to stretch out more and that he could punch, but this design just doesn't look practical. How would you even know this is Sonic? He doesn't have Sonic's gloves, he doesn't have Sonic's shoes. The only thing that indicates that he is a Sonic character is Sonic's face. I can see why they ditched this design. I like that it took inspiration from like werewolves traditionally, and it took inspiration from Bigfoot, but it's like, this design just isn't iconic enough to be in Sonic Unleashed. And I feel like that if Sega would have went with this design, Sonic Unleashed would have been even more unliked. So yeah, this design is something that's goofy and fun to look at, but in practicality, I don't see it working. So let's move on to number 3. Number 3 is Lyric from the Rise of Lyric. Now I know what you're thinking. How did we get from a snake to an owl? And that's a question I can't answer you. But I can say this. In the original Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric game that we got, he would take control of Eggman's robots and then use those to attack Sonic. This Lyric had his own specialized owl robots. So maybe he was like a scientist for the ancients and then he turned on them. Or he just didn't see eye to eye with them. Or he was trying to take power for himself. There's just so much mystery with this guy. I love his grand outfit. I love how smart, wise, and powerful he looks. He's just an overall better design than the snake we got. I don't know why we got a snake that was obsessed with tech that's supposed to be from the ancient past, but I would have really preferred this owl and his owl machines over the snake. So yeah, Lyric, I really prefer your original design compared to the design we got, but then again, it might be because the game wasn't that good that went with it. And now number 2, you knew he had to be on one of these at one point, and now he's finally here. Nazo the Hedgehog from Sonic X. Now, originally this was just a mysterious outlined character from the Sonic X trailer, the Japanese trailer, and everyone was trying to figure out who is he, and the fan base adopted him and gave him a backstory and did several animations with him to where he was a villain that takes after Cell from Dragon Ball. But in reality, he was going to be Sonic's hyper form for Sonic X. But unfortunately, Sega does not consider the hyper form to be canon, and they had Sonic X remove it from their animation. So that's why Nazo isn't in Sonic X. That's why this transformation isn't in Sonic X, because Sega's trying to distance themselves away from Hypersonic, because Hypersonic isn't canon. They've confirmed this before. Supersonic already has basically unlimited power, so to go beyond that is just completely pointless to Sega. So, Nazo or Hypersonic, I love your design, but I understand why they didn't use you. I just appreciate you more as a fan character. And now, number 1 is a character only known as the Ancient. I'm really shocked that no one's made theories about these characters, because the Ancients are so mysterious in Sonic Boom. The only thing we know about them is that they existed a long time ago, and they helped seal away Lyric. They have statues dedicated to them, and this concept art dedicated to them. As you can see with this concept art, this is one of the Ancients that is probably the ancestor to Sonic. You can tell this because he has spines going down his back, as you can see his robe pokes out, and he's obviously blue. We can see that from the little bit of fur that pokes out. Now, this culture obviously revolved around rings. You can see that on his glove. It's holding his cloak together, and he's making a ring levitate. So ring was probably the pinnacle of their technology. Now, with how much Sonic mentions rings in Sonic Boom, maybe this was an indication that rings were more important than what we thought. Maybe the reason why they always talked about rings is rings are actually a really significant plot line to the original Sonic Boom that we now no longer know about. I want to know more about these Ancients. I want to know more about the past civilization. I want to know more about what the life was like before Lyric got locked away. There's so many secrets involving these Ancients that we don't know about, and I'm really shocked that people aren't pushing to get this information out, because now we know one of the Ancients is a blue hedgehog. There's so much to work with here, and that's why he has to be number 1. So yeah, I hope you guys liked this top 10. If you did like this top 10, remember to hit the like button. If you really like it, then share it, and if you want to see more content like this, then subscribe. If you also want to see some additional stuff, go to my secondary page, DHT Commentaries, if you like commentaries. And if you want to help either of the channels out, you can always donate to my Patreon, but that's always optional. Thank you guys for watching, and bye.